Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Get My Life Tour. It is me, your host, Lydia T. Blanco. And as always, I am excited because you decided to take time out of your day, out of your life, okay, to join me here center stage. And I am so appreciative of you and the fact that you chose to spend your time with me. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the Get My Life Tour. Oh, I'm so glad that you are here. The Get My Life Tour has been such a blessing to me and a number of people who are tuning in internationally. And so the fact that we are here together, I am loving it. Okay. So welcome. If this is your, I don't know, 7th, 90th, or 100th time, because this is episode 100. Yes, I'm all in your ear. Let me back up from the mic. I just realized how loud I was when I was looking at the sound meter, but I am thrilled. I am in awe. I'm in disbelief, but I'm like, yo, I did this. We did this. I am just like so full. I'm so full. Okay, let me get my words together. So full of joy right now. And I'm also just filled with gratitude. You know, sometimes you're just doing something and you don't realize how far you've come, how much of an impact you've made, or the little things. And I'm so grateful that that's not my experience. So on this stop of the Get My Life Tour, on episode 100, I am taking the time to realize all of those things that have actually, I don't use that word twice, that have actualized, really, the things that have unfolded. And look, we out here, okay? So thank you again for taking time to show up. You know, I look at my numbers and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that so many people are tuning in and downloading and subscribing and this, that, and the third. And then I'm like, you know what, Lydia? Actually, you can, because this is what you've hoped for. This is what you've imagined. And for that, I am extremely thankful. Right. And so I was really racking my mind around what it was that I was going to bring center stage this week. And I was like, okay, well, how deep do I want to go? How much fun do I want to have? Because I want to have a lot of fun. Okay. Fun is one of my themes, one of my words for the season of my life. You know, it's kind of a challenge to have fun, but I feel like having fun and joy are forms of resistance during this national moment or international moment that we're living in, right? And so with that being said, I really want to share things that I've learned while on the Get My Life Tour. Some of these things are personal, others a bit more professional as it relates to the business of, you know, podcasting and the business of showing up for myself, right? Showing up for you all. And so I've taken the time to write a few things down. I'm real excited. I'm going to have to slow it down. Okay. But I want to share them with you. And as I began to write these things down and create this bullet list, I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much that I have learned, right? Yes, over the course of 100 episodes, but also over the course of 2 years. I don't say yes to a lot. I'm not a no person, so I don't want you to think that too, like, oh, Lydia's always telling people no. No, I've had to learn how to say no, but being intentional about my yes is something that I take pride in. And as I learn to say no, I'm like, And so one of the reasons why I realized I didn't say yes a lot was because of fear. And so I remember sitting down, having a number of conversations about being on my Get My Life tour. Oh my goodness, like 4 years ago. And then, of course, 2 years ago, deciding to actually do this. And I'm so glad that I said yes. I've talked about this a number of times before here on the show. And I think those closest to me, those who have been tuned in for quite some time realize how powerful that yes has been, right? It wasn't a temporary yes, right? That yes requires consistency. And honestly, that is the first thing on my list. Consistency is not for the faint of heart, right? There are people who are consistent with their inconsistency or whatever those things may be. But consistency is not for the faint of heart, right? And so my yes has been consistent. And it is something that I've realized as of recent, right? You have to have a consistent yes in your heart. Sometimes when we're making decisions, we say yes, no matter how quick or quickly or, let me not get my adjectives messed up, right? Or how long it may take for us to land on that decision. When you say yes to something, or let me just speak for myself. When I say yes to something, I have to say yes to that thing over and over again, right? It's reassuring for me. And it's also something that pushes me to keep my word to myself, right? And so I begin to go over the reasons why I've said yes. Sometimes my mind changes and I'm like, oh my goodness. I was just going back and forth about something and I was like, But I had to keep the yes to myself and keep my priorities in check, right? Keep the yeses that I've made as I really commit to the lifestyle, right? The life that I'm creating, that I've been called to live. And so, a part of that consistency means, yes, publishing this podcast every Monday, right? There has been one Monday where I intentionally did not publish, and that was to honor Kobe and Gianna Bryant. It was a lot going on. I felt like it was an international day of mourning, maybe a week for some or however long. And then there was a season, right, where I was like, you know what? I think it's time to take a break because I'd been going for a year and a half. And so I put out a filler and intentionally did not post. But outside of those moments, I have said yes to being consistent, right? It's unfair for me to start something and place value on this. Others place value on this content, these conversations, these moments, and showing up, and then I be inconsistent. It is so important to start what you finish. But back to my original point, saying yes repeatedly is something that helps me press on, because there are moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, I am so tired. I have so many things to do. I have to travel here. Okay, so I can't do this anymore. Oh, how am I going to fit this in? And planning, okay, is everything, okay? And so that yes, that consistent yes is what keeps me going. It's one of the things that keeps me going. I have recorded on, oh my goodness, the road, in hotel rooms. I feel like if you name a place, I have probably recorded or worked on this podcast there. And so consistency is key, but it is also not for the faint of heart, right? You have to finish what you start. I don't even want to say these are numbered lessons that I've learned, but we'll go ahead and put a number on it. Okay. So the second point that I'll make is that I've really learned to follow my heart. I follow my heart, but with this, I have literally had to follow my heart. And I'll just go ahead and add in trust my intuition. Sometimes we're so excited about things, and that's a form, or let me say this right? Sometimes we have a naive enthusiasm about things, but our hearts aren't there. And so my heart has been in this since day one. I will never forget the moment when I left the building of a previous employer and I was in the elevator, I had bought flowers for myself, this, that, and the third. Like, no one on my direct team was there for my last day. And I was like, yo, if this isn't the most high, I don't know what is, right? And so while I was like, yeah, it's interesting that no one is here, I also was like, you know what? This is the perfect outro. No one could be here. I needed to have the day, the moment, the space that I had to myself. And so I remember saying, you know what, I'm just going to go get my life. I guess I'm going to get my life tour. And that language stuck with me. And I was like, where is this leading me? I had no idea. I legit did not know. Okay. Fast forward, this thing is trademarked. I'm operating right. And I've had to follow my heart the entire time. You know, there have been so many people who have reached out for one reason or another, have made one inquiry or another. And I'm like, And so following my heart and trusting my intuition has really gotten me to this stop on the tour, but this point in my life, to this point in my life. And so, you know, that kind of leads me to my next point, right? Do not be afraid to show up. I remember finding the language to describe what the Get My Life tour was, what it would be. And I was like, you know what? I need to better show up for myself. And I want other people to show up for me. But and then I realized how scary it can be at times to show up for yourself, right? That means you need to advocate. You need to mentally prepare for whatever rooms you're going to walk in, whatever platforms you are going to, create and establish. And the second part of that is like, at times it's just going to be you. All right. It'll be you in spirit, especially if you believe, right? And other times there are those who are supposed to be there who will meet you where you are. Let me tell you something. When I went on this Get My Life tour, I didn't know who was showing up. I had my mom buy in, my sister, and a couple other people who were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Right. But before I even began to share that, I was like, oh, what does this even look like? What does this mean for me? What am I opening up? And now I know it's all of what exists as of this moment. There's still an element of the unknown, right? And so as scary as it can be, I've learned to not be afraid to show up. Sometimes you just got to give yourself that pep talk and be like, you know what? Okay, so we got this. Okay, cool, Lydia, and I am the person who speaks to themselves quite often. Okay, I think it's natural. I think it's healthy. I think more people should do it. Join me. And it really helps me to keep it moving, right? Keep it moving into the spaces that I've been called to. And even when I meet people there who I wasn't anticipating, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm here now. Sometimes you just got to have that I'm here now mentality. And that is, going to be what shifts the atmosphere. All right, so moving on. You know what? I've always been resourceful. And I know some people say resourceful, right? Whichever you prefer. But I've always been resourceful. And it has been, it has been special. It has really been a special experience not having a team, but learning when to ask for help. I don't have someone who's editing, who is producing and shooting and booking and scheduling and marketing and all these other things as it relates to the business side of this podcast. I am a one-woman team. And as I grow and expand and build this out, I am praying for the right people to come along, honestly. But in the meantime, being resourceful has really helped me, right? And so it has helped me to sharpen my ability to anticipate challenges and different needs, but also know when to ask for help. I was like, you know what? Well, I want to start talking to people. And in the very first season, right before it even launched, so I'll just say in pre-production, I would have all these conversations with people. I had one mic, we were trying to share, but I was like, you know what, let them be here, heard more. And it just was like, what? And so I began to share what I was doing, and someone gifted me with an identical microphone. I was like, what? You want to give this to me? And my homeboy Ed was like, yes, because what you're doing is incredible. And this, that, and the third. And I was like, oh my goodness. Others just thinking of who they could send my way, or sharing different newsletters and people to follow who are doing this, right? Who are podcasting, articles on the business side of podcasting, that has really helped me. And as I learn, as I grow, and when I set, what am I trying to say? And as I build this thing out with other people, being able to be resourceful is not only like a blessing, right? Some people don't have the capacity or like the mindset, but that has really been helpful. Okay. As well as knowing when to ask for help, right? So speaking of asking, right? I have really learned to ask for what I want, and also set a precedence, right? It's one thing to just ask for something, but you also have to set a precedence when you're asking, right? So that people know that you mean business, but also that you mean what you say. And so I now have no problem with asking. And I feel like this is twofold, right? You have to put out there what it is that you want so that it can come to you. And so in booking guests and all these other things, I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to ask you to do this. Or, this is the way I'm used to doing things. May I ask you, are you comfortable with that? Being that candid with people really has set the way that I do things apart. And that's all I'll say on that one, right? But it kind of leads me to my next point in being selective, right? I have worked with people, have experienced people, have been in the room with people who are extremely selective. And at times, one would think that being that way can rub others wrong, but I get it. I feel like I get it now more than ever. What I've learned is that being selective helps to communicate your boundaries and what you value. And so as I commit my time, my dedication, my attention to producing quality content for everyone who tunes in, be it regularly or just for a moment, I have to be extremely selective, right? I can't tolerate people canceling on me repeatedly. That's bad, right? That's bad business. And there are other things that come up and I'm like, right? Quality over quantity, being selective, as so many people pursue being more visible, right? Getting their media hits, this, that, and the third. I am one who wants to protect the space that we have created here together. So that means that I have to be extremely selective and set those boundaries and communicate them. And so I offer that to you as well, right? But that is honestly something that I have learned. And I'm like, wow. And it's what set people apart, right? Like there are great podcasts out there that I listen to. And what I've learned is that everybody can't, you know what I'm saying? Yes, everybody cannot go, but everybody can't be a part of what you're doing. It has to make sense, right? And a lot of people are trying to figure out the podcasting industry and how to monetize this, that, and the third, right? So beyond dollars, it really has to make sense for me. And so being selective is something that I value at this point. And I hope that is, helpful to someone else who may be thinking about starting something or probably just needs to tighten up on their boundaries. Be selective. There's nothing wrong with that. I feel like there's a way to be selective without being so exclusive, and not really being kind to others. Let's just say it that way. Okay. And so I kind of touched on this point already, but I can't say it enough, especially in this age, right? This digital, this social, this media driven, this celebrity driven age. Quality will always trump quantity. It is so exciting to be at episode 100, but I can honestly say, okay, with a pure heart, that every stop on this tour has meant something to someone outside of myself. And it is because quality is so important. There is no room to play on a Get My Life tour. I may crack a joke here and there. We have some really cute kiki ha-ha moments. And those are fun. They're necessary, right? But it is so important to me to have people come on here who are about their business. I always say how you live your life is your business. And I mean it. And so quality is everything to me, right? Excellence. I could care less about, a notification coming on while I'm recording or accidentally hitting my mic, speaking a bit too close, right? Those things can be forgiven. Those things you kind of like, okay, take with a grain of salt. But somebody coming on this platform and playing, or me just pushing out content without any substance is not okay. I do not take anyone else's time lightly. I'd rather lose money than my time. You cannot get your time back. And so I really value that this is a space of high quality content, but beyond content, right? A space where people are able to practice vulnerability and get the questions that life has posed at them answered through conversation, and through conversation with people who they may not have met otherwise, right? And so I say all of that to say quality will always trump quantity. If I never make it to episode 5,500, okay, or 150, I am content with what already has been published. And I mean that. Okay. So, with me saying that I am not afraid to ask for anything, one of the things that I've learned is that persistence is also key, right? And with that, sometimes you have to ask a number of times. And in that, and here is my actual point, no, being told no, oftentimes is preparation for your moment that is on the way. And I always say, no doesn't always mean no forever, right? Sometimes no means not now. And I've heard people talk about, rejection being God's protection and all these other things, right? But in addition to that, I really feel like sometimes no is the preparation you need, right? No gives you that breathing room. And I'm sharing this because I remember Sarah Jakes Roberts and I being on camera and it being such a big moment. Oh my goodness. I'm still grateful, forever grateful for that moment and her team who made that happen. And I also remember the moment when I, was sitting at work, listening to her sermons back to back on YouTube. And I was like, you know what? Let me just go to her website and see if she has a contact form. She did. Gathered that information, went home, worked on my little email. Not little, I worked on my email. And I actually heard back from someone on her team. At that time, I was inquiring about her to be on the show, and I was still new to podcasting. But I was like, you know what? I feel this connection. This is supposed to happen. And I went back and forth with her representation at that time. And the response I received was that she was completely booked for the rest of the calendar year. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I wasn't told no. I heard not now. And so when the opportunity arose again, I was like, you know what, Lydia, you're just going to shoot your shot. And so I used my column at Forbes Women as leverage, right, to really pique her interest in being featured because her book was coming out. And I was like, and actually, you know, I have a podcast. And I was like, no, I'm not going to say it. And then her representation was like, well, you know what? Don't you have a podcast as well? And I was like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to say it. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I do. And I sent all of my media kit-esque information, right? My one sheet. And it happened. And I was like, okay, number one, you wasn't going to say nothing, even though you planned on saying something, you kind of chickened out. But you know what I'm saying? It happened anyways, right? So God is faithful. But what I learned during that moment of not now was to get my one sheet together, make sure that I was formulating my pitch, right? Or my ask when the moment to reach out to her, you know, came about again, right? I had an opportunity to leverage something that was extremely valuable to her and her team. And that opened the door, right? I was like, well, actually, I was previously communicating with this person and that person. And just to go back a bit, I actually reached out to the person who I was originally communicating with, and she was the person who led me or pointed me to the person who was now representing Sarah Jakes Roberts, right? So I say all of this to say, like, use your time wisely. Just because you hear not yet or not now or no doesn't mean that the opportunity won't come about, right? So many people were like, oh my goodness, how did you get Sarah Jakes Roberts on the Get My Life tour? And I was like, well, I spoke it into existence. I reached out before, you know, I kind of was nervous to pitch it again, but I did. And we made it happen. I got my business, you know, information in order, and it was a yes. And so that conversation blessed me. It blessed so many other people. And I really hope that you get the message, right? No, oftentimes is the period of time that you need to prepare for when your moment is coming around again. All right. So I alluded to this a bit in what I just shared, but I'll say it again as like its own point. You have to be about your business. You have to know your numbers. And this takes time, right? I remember looking at the dashboard and being content with what was just there. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to try this podcast plugin. And actually, I need to just like dig into these analytics a little bit more. And let me see what other analytical tools are out there. And I began to do research, and I was like, oh my goodness. You know, I learned what percentile the podcast was ranking in. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was able to put that one sheet together, right? I say this to my fellow podcasters and creatives. Have a one sheet. You never know who's going to reach out to you. I've had people from various industries and companies reach out. And there have been some really interesting transactions and a lot of interesting conversations. But what I take away from a lot of those conversations is people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you could get me this information so promptly, right? Because they engage with a lot of people who don't know their numbers. They're just waiting for an opportunity to happen, but people need to know that you're able to execute and return, on whatever investment they make. And so I say this to you, take the time it requires to learn your business. Know your numbers for yourself. You don't have to go around parading your numbers, right? Or comparing your numbers to someone else. Don't do that either. Mind your business. But know your numbers for yourself. That way you challenge yourself to be more data-driven, and you can have more articulate conversations about what it is that you're doing. And I feel like that will honestly make room for you. I have been able to speak about the business side of being a creative on different platforms. And those opportunities to speak came because I was in connection or a relationship with other people, but also because people were like, oh, I think you actually know what you're doing. You are consistent. Oh, I see the way you do this. And let me tell you something. I don't think I'm the best at what I do. I don't. And maybe, Diddy, my alter ego and mentor in my head would be like, you need to think you're the best. No, yeah, that's cool, right? But there's a level of humility I still have on reserve because life is real, right? And I believe I'm always learning, right? I say that to say, like, I could be doing better at social media. I could, I want to do the video component of this so badly. And I have the ability. I just haven't had the time. And there's so many things that I could be doing, right? But when you know your stuff, you know your stuff. And that puts you ahead, right? Somebody can have a 200, long, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say. It's not coming out the way I want to say it, right? Somebody can have 200 episodes of a video podcast uploaded to YouTube, and you can look at their views, this, that, and the third. But if they just have the team, but they don't have the knowledge, it's not, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't carry its weight, or it's not worth its weight in gold. So at minimum, be about your business. I say all that to say that. Okay. I feel like this is a little more lengthier than I thought, right? I was like, I'm not going to keep them long, but hey, it's episode 100. If you're here for a reason. So I have a few more things, and maybe more than a few, that I actually want to share with you. And so what really is top of mind for me, is that while I have designed this podcast with an audience in mind, what I create is not for everyone. Some people are like, oh, are you a motivational speaker? Are you this? Are you that? And I'm like, I actually love business and lifestyle and wellness. And my mantra is how you live your life is your business. And that's very attractive to some people. Others, they're like, okay, we already have a this, a that, or, that person. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I ain't trying to be them. You feel me? I'm Lydia. Love it. But that doesn't resonate with everyone. And as you create, yes, you can create with an audience in mind, but know that everything you create is not for everybody. Okay? And that's fair. I don't want to listen to everything everyone has to say, right? I just don't accept other people's truths or what they have to share. And I don't expect that from other people as well. And so I really want to share that with someone, because at times it can be discouraging for some. But you have to remember your why. And that will ground you, and that will center you and help you to refocus. And so it'll also help you manage your expectations. There goes that the noise I've mentioned, like, it's not going to be perfect, right? I need to cut my nails because they're getting too long, and I just hit the mic as I was speaking. Okay. But it will really help you to manage your expectations when you realize that. And I have learned to manage my expectations while doing this. When I first started, I was like, oh, by episode 20, it'll look this way by episode 60. Okay. By the 90th episode, by the 100th episode. And I'm like, wow, baby girl, you are doing this by yourself. Number one. Okay. At least here on this side, right? This is you. And so managing my expectations about how long it's going to take for me to do something, who something is going to resonate with, who I may attract, who I'm able to book as a guest, what my social media looks like, this, that, and third. You got to be realistic about your expectations, right? The standards you set for yourself and others. There's so much I am looking forward to unfolding as I continue this tour, but I have to also be realistic. In saying that, my next point is I've also learned how to cherish the hard times. It has been an incredible journey this far. It has also not been easy. Making sure that my content goes out like clockwork, okay? Mondays, 3 a.m. Pacific time, 6 a.m. Eastern time, and all the other time zones. Making sure that's consistent, right? There are people tuning in from over 80 countries. If you tell me you're going to send me something at this time, I expect it at that time, right? And so I'm like, whoa, there are some days where I'm like, okay, I got competing deadlines and I need to publish this and I got to do that and I got to be here and this person's waiting on me. Okay. That gets challenging, right? Thinking that there is going to be something that happens that doesn't, being hard on myself, right? I don't necessarily cherish that, but I've learned you got to take the good with the bad. You got to take the ease and the increase with the challenges. And you can't expect for one to exist without the other. And so I've learned to really cherish all of those moments. And I don't think there are enough conversations about that. I think people think it's going to be one way or the other, but there are a lot of gray areas that you have to learn how to cherish, right? Who knows? I've been talking about this media center, this, that, and the third for so long. It has been my dream. It's going to happen, y'all. Okay. Let's speak it into existence. But producing this podcast has taught me so much, right? About time management, about business, about people relations and customer service. And these moments that seem so intimate at times have literally transformed the way that I show up in other spaces. Being able to talk about this with people who are interested in working with me on various projects or who actually want advice or mentorship. I'm like, what? Get My Life Tour has made room for all of this? This was a part of your plans, Most High? Me? Wow. And so I value that. I value each and every person who was reached out with feedback, a compliment, a testimony. It's rare that people actually talk to you, right? In this age of just liking or reacting with some kind of emoji, people ain't talking. I'm like, oh my goodness, talk to me. Hello. I talk to you every week. Talk back. Don't be rude, right? But there are people. I get messages on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Facebook, these various platforms. And I'm like, you know what? Thank you so much for taking the time. I don't take that lightly because we are so connected as we are to our phones. And so every time someone reaches out, I'm like, oh my goodness, right? To me, that's more powerful than 5 million people reviewing the podcast. Yeah, that looks good. But when someone actually reaches out and they're like, look, when you said that, and I mean, it just is so heartwarming, right? And so I want to end with gratitude, right? I'll have my mic drop moment, but I really want to end with gratitude. I want to thank each and every person who has taken center stage, right? In the form as a guest or those who have tuned in, wherever it is that you are around the world. I am so grateful for you. 2 years ago, I couldn't have imagined what life with this podcast would look like. And it's because you have chosen to show up with me that I've been able to, heed to the call and create what I have today. And so your participation is valuable. And the Get My Life tour wouldn't be what it is without you. So I'm extremely grateful. There have been so many people who've trusted me with their stories, trusted that this space would remain sacred with some of their most challenging moments, some of their most prideful moments. And so for that, I'm grateful. I really can't find all of the words right now, but I'm so happy I said yes. I'm so happy you said yes. And that to me is gold. It really is. All right, so it's officially time for me to drop the mic. And what is on my heart is this. It's time to do what you've been called to do. Stop running from it. Stop trying to hide from it. Stop trying to talk yourself out of it. You don't need any external validation. It is time. And it is arrogant to think that you have more time than you actually do. Y'all, my heart is like beating actually at a decent rhythmic pace, but it's so full. And I'm just overcome with joy, with peace, and with happiness. And so I really hope that my learnings are helpful to you on your journey, right? On your tour. Look, as always, I want to hear from you. So I don't care what you have to share, just share it, okay? Email me at joinme@thegetmylifetour.com. Be sure to let me know your thoughts, okay? As always, stay connected on social platforms at the Get My Life Tour, and to stay connected with me as I share my work creatively, journalistically, or just my thoughts and commentary. Be sure to do so at Lydia T Blanco on Instagram or at by Lydia T Blanco on Facebook. Visit thegetmylifetour.com. If you are interested in collaborating, being a guest, any of that, email me at joinme@thegetmylifetour.com. I cannot wait to see what is revealed, right? In this season, in this moment of being on tour with you. I hope that you have received and that this podcast has been a gift unto you, right? And I'm just so grateful, right? And so before I say a whole bunch of filler words, because I'm hype and I am over the moon, I will say this. Keep showing up for yourself. Look, I am at a loss for words at this point because I've said a lot. But until the next stop on the Get My Life Tour, it has been real. Peace.